Welcome to Life and DNA with Amanda Renee. I'm so glad you joined me today. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Life and DNA with Amanda Renee. I'm Amanda. Thank you for listening to my podcast. And if you are watching on YouTube, if you would hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate it. And if you're listening on one of the podcast sites, if you would rank the podcast, that would be awesome. Thank you. Sorry that I've been kind of MIA for a few weeks. I just have been, one, busy with Halloween and getting ready for Thanksgiving and doing homeschooling and all the different things going on. But also, I'm just kind of, I don't know. That's what I want to talk to you about today is kind of what's going on in my life just with me in general. I am praying about the direction to take the podcast because my original idea for the podcast was, of course, talking about genealogy, DNA, things like that. But in this particular phase of my life, I'm just not able to spend that much time in doing the research that I would love to just spend all day doing. But with homeschooling my kids and taking care of the house and all the things we have going on, I'm just not able to do that. And so I'm kind of trying to just figure out where God wants me to take this. And so the next couple weeks, I will be, that's what I'm going to be focusing on in praying for that and figuring that out. I will try to have an episode for next week. I won't have one the week of Thanksgiving, obviously, because everybody's going to be too busy to be listening to podcasts anyway. So yeah, the thing I wanted to talk about today is just, and I don't know, if you've listened to me before, you know that doing the podcast for me is almost like a form of therapy. I am a homeschool mom, a stay-home mom. I don't get a lot of adult conversation most of the day. Till my husband comes home, and then he doesn't always feel like, chit-chatting a ton. And so I just don't get a lot of conversation. And so doing this podcast helps me to kind of get my thoughts out where I normally didn't. That has kind of helped me put into words some things that have been going on just for the past year, because I've had the podcast it was a year in September. And so that's really helped me, I think, to grow, to kind of get through some things that I was going through. And I've really loved doing that. I hope that you guys enjoy listening to me doing that. And I hope, to have a more focused direction for the podcast in the future. So that it isn't just me kind of rambling about what I have been learning and figuring out about myself, because unless you're going through the same thing, that's probably not going to be super just what you want to sit and listen to. So I have if you've listened at all for the past few years, I have just struggled with who I really am after finding out some things about my childhood that the majority of it was a lie, and that I can't trust the memories that I have of my childhood, because I found out that my mom is a covert narcissist and basically manipulated and lied through my entire childhood for me and my siblings, and not to bash her. I think I've pretty much taken down. I've felt bad, not necessarily for her, but I've felt bad that I've said as much as I've said about her, just because I want to be blameless in God's sight with that. I don't want to be guilty of dishonoring her. So I'm going to try to just stick with what I need to reveal as far as just so you understand where I'm coming from. As I think I've taken down the episodes that I felt guilty about putting too much information out there. But once I found that out, I've struggled with figuring out who I really am, because I felt that a lot of my personality traits, or a lot of how I deal with things and deal with people, was twisted and conditioned by her, and that a lot of my life was just manipulated. And ever since learning that, I've struggled to remember a lot from my childhood. I used to pride myself on having a really good memory of things that happened to me when I was young, and I can't seem to grab a hold of any of those really, unless like a picture or me and my sisters talking, something jogs a memory. Otherwise, I can't just sit and picture and think of a lot of memories. I don't know if that's, just my brain learning that you can't trust everything from that, so we're just gonna wipe it all clean and start from scratch. I don't know. But that's kind of where I am, where I've been struggling with. This past year, I've come a long way, I feel like, with it. I feel like my eyes being opened to her behavior has kind of just opened my eyes in general, with anyone's behavior, and I can kind of see when I'm being manipulated now, see when I'm being played, see when someone's lying to me. Usually, I still struggle with that one a little bit, just because I'm a trusting person, maybe a little more cynical now after finding all this out, but I still don't just always assume people are lying to me. So I am trying to be more discerning that way, and not just be a doormat for people to walk all over. And I've always been very non-confrontational. I am working on that, because I refuse to be manipulated anymore. I refuse to be treated like crap anymore. I refuse to be lied to and used, and I'm not going to be someone's narcissistic supply ever again, if I have something to say about it. And so I've come a long way with that. I do believe talking about it a lot has helped me, and just kind of, I don't know, there's something freeing in having your eyes open to things like that, and then knowing, I don't know, it's almost like something just clicked into place once I processed the anger and the hurt and got kind of through all of that. And just now I'm at a place where it is what it is, and this is my reality, and what am I going to do with it from here on out? And that's kind of been freeing. I think some of it has to do with my age and just being more mature and dealing with things. Something weird about that, my entire life I've always felt, I don't know, I don't want to say stuck, because I did grown up things and, got married, had kids, paid bills, lived on my own at one point. But I've never felt my age before, ever. And not that I feel completely my age now, but since having this switch, whatever it is, whatever has gone on in me, mentally and emotionally, I don't feel like that anymore. I don't feel like a kid. I've always felt kind of, again, I hate the word stuck, but almost stuck at age 16 for some reason. And I always saw myself as young and never, I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone else, but I've always just had to remind myself of how old I am, remind myself that I'm an adult. I don't have to really do that anymore. And again, I don't know if it's just because of my age or because, but a year ago I would have said I was still trying to have to tell myself that I was an adult. So something has gone on. While I was laying in bed last night, not able to go back to sleep right away, I did actually have kind of a flood of memories. I was trying to think about what I was going to talk about on the podcast and think about just changes going on in me in general, and how, for a while I was struggling to remember who I really was before my mom manipulated me into being a certain way. And I was just laying there thinking about it, and I just had this flood of memories. Nothing super distinct. Nothing really I could kind of grab a hold of, but just several things flooding in a row of that I always kind of felt different. That I knew who I was as a young kid, as a teenager. I knew who I was. I knew those things, but I also knew that I couldn't be that out loud, if that makes sense. I couldn't express it very much, or then I would get, ridiculed, mocked, made it very clear that it wasn't appreciated, that I was being that way or being too much myself. I had to be what she wanted, or I was going to have to deal with the mockery and humiliation. And I wasn't the type of person to want to do that, so I just buried all of that and saved it for just myself. But I had kind of forgotten all of that. I don't know if it's because a lot of the things that I believed about myself and that I identified as being such a big part of myself has had to be on the back burner for so many years. Being a wife and a mom and a homeschool mom on top of that, there hasn't been a lot of time for me to just do things I'm interested in, or really have hobbies for myself, things like that. Except for genealogy, I can kind of do that on the computer. But when I was younger, I was very smart. You might not believe that if you've listened to me very long. Again, being a wife and a mom and having to put a lot of my learning on the back burner, as well as an autoimmune condition that makes my memory and brain fog horrendous, has not helped. But I always identified with that. I loved learning. I still do. I loved listening to people smarter than me and just gleaning all the information I could and reading. And a lot of times if I get on a subject, I kind of get, because I always did have kind of obsessive compulsive tendencies when I was younger. And so I will just go off, on a tangent, trying to learn as much as I can about this one subject. And I've kind of always been that way. And I thought it was weird that the memories of that kind of came flooding back now when my kids are a little older. And yes, I still homeschool them and I still have to spend quite a bit of my time with that. But because they are 14 and 10 and can do a lot of things themselves now, I have a little bit of time to read what I want to read and learn some things. Obviously not a ton of time, but a little bit, enough that I've kind of tapped into that side of me again, and I missed it. I really missed it. So that's been nice. I've liked that. But it was funny because, well, not funny. One of the memories that came back with that was, I always had to kind of hide that side of myself. And because I was one that loved to read. I even went through a phase. I loved reading Shakespeare. I loved watching movies based on Shakespeare. I loved reading, Jane Austen, old classic novels. And when you read like that, you naturally gain a bigger vocabulary. And I just remember, if I would happen to use a word that was out of the norm with my family, that I would get just totally made fun of. And not in they could have meant it, lighthearted. It just never felt that way. And knowing what I know about narcissism now, with my mother, I know that it wasn't just lighthearted jesting. It was just like, put that part of you back away and don't bring it out. And so, I've missed that. I think it also has helped tap into that because my daughter's getting older. She's getting to the age where she's reading things that I loved reading then, and I have her to discuss them with. And she's also, very smart. She's ahead of where I was at her age even, and she's so I have her to talk with things like that, and that's been nice. And then, I look forward to my son getting up to that age and getting to do that again and keeping that up. And I've just felt like it's just reawakened something in me that was just asleep for so many years. I don't know why I'm crying about that, but it's just nice. And the other thing that I knew about myself was that I was very creative. I have not tapped into that side of myself since before I got pregnant with our daughter. I had taken a painting class at the local library in town, and it was the last time that I have done anything like that. And so that's, a good 15 years ago. And I've just been having the urge to get back into that. I have not done that one yet, but I've just had the urge lately to start doing something like that. I used to write, I used to paint, I used to draw all the time. And so trying to tap back into my creative side is something I want to explore too. Anyway, all of that to say, it's helped me knowing that those things were always there, and that she hadn't taken those away from me. I had set them aside, I think. Well, yes, I didn't feel comfortable expressing those sides of myself to anyone. My sisters also would kind of make fun of me for things like that, and everyone in school always made fun of me for things like that. I never felt I could be myself and be accepted, and so I think that that's why I have a hard time being authentically me. It's something I'm trying to work on. I know no one that in my circle of anybody I hang out with would probably even think either one of those things about me. Just because I don't tend to talk a lot about anything that would make them think that. And, but I'm going to try to remedy that, or at least for myself, tap back into those areas of myself that make me feel more like me, if that makes sense. But so that's kind of the journey I've been on with all of that, and struggling with that has kind of made it where it was harder for finding things to talk about on the podcast, just because I don't know which direction to move forward in just yet. But I promise that I will try. And I believe God's going to show me which way to go with that. And yeah, so thank you for letting me have a therapy session and talk to you about all of that. Yeah, it's just been nice. Last night was kind of an epiphany for me, laying there, getting to just have those memories of that I did know who I was the whole time, even though I knew I was having to bury it. And then I think I just got used to burying it, and when I didn't have time to focus on myself, it was very easy to just stick those things on the back burner and just kind of function like I always have with the way I've always had to. Just function to get by and go along with, everything that's going on. So it was nice realizing that that whole time those things were still there. I spent a lot of time, I am kind of introverted. I spend a lot of time, before I got married and had kids, I spent a lot of time by myself. And growing up, I would just shut myself away in my room and either lose myself in music or writing a story, drawing, reading, things like that. And so it was nice to finally have a memory of that I knew those things all along. Even though I wasn't expressing them outwardly to everyone, because I felt like I couldn't. It was nice to remember that about myself, and it was nice to be like, okay, that's something tangible that I can take and move forward with. Because I have been, I've never stopped learning, even when the kids were little, whether it was listening to something, watching something on YouTube while I'm doing the dishes, or putting on my makeup, or, reading a book that was about something I was interested in. I've always tried to keep learning. I am thankful that I have a little more time for that now. I say that, and then the holidays are going to come, and I'm going to have no time for anything. But, and maybe none of this makes sense to anyone else, but it was just nice. It was so nice to just realize that that was still there, realize that I could remember being that way, remember thinking those things, and that it wasn't ever really stolen from me. Because that was one of the things I was so angry about when I found out all of those things. Um, and that I had to be a certain way, had to hide things about myself just to, function in my family. Um, so it was nice to have a memory that I always knew that was in there. And even those two things may not even totally define me, but they were something that always was important to me. And so, yeah, it was just fun to remember that. And I'm going to hold on to that moving forward as I try to make some space for what I like to do, make some time for things that are important to me, as I try to continue learning and growing as a person, and as a mom and a wife, and just, yeah, I'm excited for that now. I don't feel as lost today as I did before today, if that makes any sense to anyone. So yeah, thank you. And thank you for listening. And don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And next week, I believe I will be talking about just holidays, prepping for the holidays, the stress of the holidays. And yeah, that's what I'll be talking about. So I will see you back here next week.